and they make an error, they could do a bit of a big, well, not a little, a big lock-up coming in to turns 1 and 2 at the end of pit straight. We couldn't quite see whose car that was, but still the legacy of the tyre smoke. That'll probably be a flat spotted front tyre on one or other side. So whether that will affect how that car will perform. If you get a major flat spot, it does hurt you badly, because the amount of vibration you'll get through your steering will make it very unpleasant indeed to continue.
Well, right now, Manuel Espirito Santo for Portugal looking pretty quick. The best time, though, has been done, and I know that we will go faster than this, by India's Rohan Alvar, who raced in the UAE Championship this year. And he's now bested by Julius Dinesen for Denmark. But for Portugal, Santo looking good. Looking good here.
Yes, so currently he got about 2 seconds quicker in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2. In timing and scoring right now, he's second quickest, having done that time on his second lap. So he's all set to, I think, make a significant improvement. Just wait for him to come through. There's sort of into the third sector of the circuit to come down, and then there's penultimate corner before you go into Village Dupont. Trying to get the front of the car in, but you really feel that he's still struggling a little bit, slightly over to the middle of the racetrack to make that sweep to the right, then back on to start-finish straight. So current quickest time is at 2 minutes 12.5. I would imagine that Espirito Santo might improve on that as he goes across start-finish line. He does. He's gone with a 2 minute 9.2. So within a second of the best times that we saw on Friday running. Back end snaps away there, David.
Absolutely. I mean, it's still, despite the fact that it's relatively mild weather, a coolish racetrack. They're trying to get the warmth into the tyres. Interestingly, India's Rohan Alvar has pitted, as now, up to the top of the times into the 2:10s, has gone Australia's Costa Taparis for Motorsport Australia. Then Julius Dinesen, the Danish champion, goes even faster by half a second. And that means that here, the Portuguese entry, Manuel Espirito Santo, is down to third, and he's got a big chunk of time to find.
Well, we saw a lap recorded 2 minutes 9 come up on timing and scoring. That appears to have been deleted, because he's now down to third quickest with a 2 minutes 13. So whether he had exceeded track limits, there's no notification from timing and scoring that he might have done so. So that's a bit of a mystery, where he had the 2 minutes and 9, and then all of a sudden his best lap is a 2:13.
But I would go with your theory that it is a track limit offence. There were 2 pages of cancelled lap times yesterday in free practice 2. As you look at Germany's Valentin Klus, who is 11th, or was 11th in the German Championship, karting champion last year. Up to the top of the times now, though, has gone Georgia's Sandro Tavakeladze, and he's done a 2 minutes 9.963. So the Georgian representative is quickest. You're looking at Germany, which is a nation that had a win on track in the first qualifying race in GT Cup last night. But Valentin Klus here is heading up towards the line. This is going to be his first flying lap, John.
It is. I was just going to point out he has not recorded a flying lap to date, and this is his first flying lap. Fastest overall sectors 1 and 3, and fastest overall 2 minutes 9.1, 8/10 of a second ahead of the number 19 entry from Georgia.
Of Sandro Tavakeladze, Julius Dinesen for Denmark third, then you've got Australia, then you've got Brazil, then you've got Portugal, then 7th in the times at the moment is Ethan Ho for Chinese Taipei. 8th currently is Serbia, which is Filip Janik. 9th fastest, it is Chile, Maria Jose Perez Arte Rodriguez, and the top 10 are rounded out by Mozambique's Guilherme Rocha. Now, for Australia, Costa Taparis looking good.
Yeah, indeed. Again, look at that middle sector, quarter of a second up. So out of the final corner, and not far behind is the 51 entry as well. So that's Claro, waiting to see again what's happening to Tuba. So he goes second, quickest Australia now, second behind Valentin Klaus for Germany. So that was a really strong run, that first flying lap from the young German driver to consolidate a lap time that is still, what, 3/10 of a second ahead of the Australia entry. As we look now at the Brazil entry, Pedro Claro, and again, look, middle sector, 2/10 of a second up.
So this looks good. Valentin Klus for Germany then, ahead of Costa Taparis second, the Australian driver. Portugal third again, Manuel Espirito Santo. But you would say that the Brazilian champion, Pedro Claro, now ought to be able to get himself up to the very top of the times then. So the junior champion in the Brazilian Open Karting Cup. He's raced in Formula Delta in Brazil. He's also raced in the Italian Championship this year, but it's the Brazilian series that he has won. So he's done the miles. He comes up over the curb on the exit of the Virage Dupont. Brazil for pole, potentially, as up towards the timing line comes then Pedro Claro. He breaks the beam, and that puts him at the very top. 2 minutes 8.544, 6/10 of a second quicker. Brazil take provisional pole.
He's certainly at the races right now with that time. That is getting into the zone. And we now see the second place car, number 10, from Serbia, Filip Janik. He's gone second quickest, just 77 hundredths of a second behind Valentin Klaus. So it's beginning to kick off. Look also for Espírito Santo in the Portuguese entry, currently in 5th place, but fastest overall in Sector 1, personal best Sector 2. So he's looking like he's going to challenge that top, well, the top 2 positions for the grid for the race later today.
And so Valentin Klaus for Germany back to the top of the times, 2 minutes 8.383. For Portugal, across the line to go second, Manuel Espírito Santo, 2 minutes 8.408. He's only 25 thousandths of a second shy of Germany.
We would expect this, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
You know, spec cars, spec tyres, and a very sort of straightforward, non-complicated car to encourage young drivers to get into single-seater racing and not be overly burdened with the technology that they will have to deal with when they move further into their career. So it's straightforward, wing, front and rear, and not a lot more you can change.
We haven't yet had a lap time that stands out of India's Rohan Alva, nor out of Switzerland Dario Cabanilles, nor out of Valentino Mini, who represents Panama and is a driver that will have raced here because he's been in the French F4 Championship this season. They have yet to do lap times, but they are back on track now. As you look at the Serbian entry, number 10, which is Filip Jenic.
In 4th position, presently 2 minutes 8.6. He's 2/10 and a bit away from the fastest lap, still with Valentin Klaus for Team Germany. But again, look, going back to what we've seen from Brazil, Claro is fastest in that middle sector.
That's a car that was moving around quite a lot, so trying to get the warmth still in the Pirelli rubber as up towards the timing line comes Brazil. This for pole position then, he's got to find just over 1/10 of a second. Finds it, goes quickest, so it's Brazil at the top of the times. Pedro Claro, 2 minutes 8.317, 66 thousandths quicker than Germany.
It's what you really expect. I mean, if you take the top 4, they're covered by 3/10 of a second, but the top 3 are covered by 91 hundredths of a second. So it is exceptionally close. But David, you're right. Even though they've been on track for virtually half this 25-minute session, they're still looking to find a way to get or retain heat in the tyre. It is a long circuit, 5.8 kilometers, and there's parts of the track, particularly on the straight, where the tyre temperature might just drop away a little bit. And then when you get to the chicane, you wonder, well, where's the bite on the turn-in?
Now, one of the surprises of the session is that Italy, the decorated Andrea Kimi Antonelli is not fastest. Well, he might be at the end of the lap because although he's only 13th in the times, he's done an absolute best in the first sector. So there you can see for Italy, the Italian and the German champion, 2 absolute bests. So Andrea Antonelli, or Kimi Antonelli as he prefers to be known as, Andrea Kimi, his full name, comes down towards Le Beausset. This is the man that everybody is predicting is going to be the gold medalist. Quickest in FP1, quickest in FP2, but he's taken his time here at getting himself up to pace.
Well, he knows he's got so much self-confidence. He knows when he needs to push. He didn't go out and try and be quickest immediately. The circuit will be changing. This as part of the character of Paul Ricard, and literally by the minute the circuit will give you a slightly different reaction. So now fastest overall sector 1, fastest overall sector 2, into the final sector, coming down to Virage du Pont. Here you turn right, be careful with it curving on the exit. You don't want to run that too aggressively. Good clean exit indeed for Antonelli, and he will no doubt go quickest overall with this lap because as he goes across start finish line waiting for timing and scoring to clear, he does. 2 minutes 7.4. He's blown the doors off all the remaining competitors.
8/10 of a second and a bit more quicker than Brazil. So Italy, Brazil, Germany, Portugal, Austria now 5th. Charlie Wurtz goes up to 5th quickest. Serbia 6th, thanks to Filip Jenic. Belgium 7th, Laurens de Setua. And then it is Georgia 8th, 9th currently it is Spain, and 10th is Australia. This is the Swiss representative in F4. This is Dario Cabanilles, who is the driver from the French Championship, 9th this year. He has finished 8th the year before. So again, he has some Paul Ricard knowledge, but at the moment only 11th in the times is Cabanilles. Whoops, there's a car off in the background, look, going all over the curb in the runoff area. But having said that he's only 11th, Cabanilles has now done 2 personal bests.
Yes, he would like to have a purple in those first 2 sector times, but nevertheless 2 personal bests. If he can consolidate with a further green personal best sector in that final sector, he has a chance of making a bit of progress. Currently in 11th position. He is 2 seconds away from the quickest time so far by Kimi Antonelli. Charlie Wirtz is now in 2nd place. So we've got a number of sons of famous fathers. Charlie Wirtz, of course, is the son of the famous, well, what would you call him? GT or Formula One or Le Mans prototype or
all of the above.
Alex
really.
Wirtz. He's done it, and his father, of course, before him was a European rallycross champion.
Franz Wirtz.
Franz Wirtz.
That's it.
In a VW Beetle.
That's right.
Isn't that correct?
And he was, and then Franz Wirtz was one of the first people that brought an Audi Quattro into rallycross, if you want to really get your anorak on. But that's going back a long, long time. But you're right, he comes from good racing stock, and he's up to 2nd fastest then now, Charlie Wirtz. As you look here at Valentino Mini for Panama, now Mini is 19th fastest at the moment. The session's got 8 more minutes, as you can see, on the clock.
A couple of the other sons of famous fathers, Pedro Sarrazin down in 22nd place, Alistair Young down in 23rd, but Young is on a lap, so it expected, well, he has made a small improvement, but it's only his 22nd overall. He's completed a lap, but that's 2 minutes and 21. That was his last lap, so I wonder what's happened to those 2 sons of famous dads. Stefan Sarrazin was one of multitasking competitor, both as a rally driver and as a race driver. Used to be sort of strapped in at Le Mans for one of those scintillating pole position charges that Stefan Sarrazin carried out very successfully indeed. I dread to be with him when he was doing it, but he managed to find the time.
Way up the curb, and a big moment, and around goes Wirtz. Austria spins, throws away a lap, and that was all self-induced. There was no traffic around. What did he do? Just hook a wheel over the curb. Just
a little bit too wide on the exit of Beausoleil. And once the car went, the momentum, the pendulum effect just continued around. So Charlie Wirtz there was bouncing over them, and no wonder the car just went into a hop, skip, and a jump over those quite aggressive curbstones on the exit of La Beausoleil. And well, hopefully again he's not damaged the car. I don't think there will be any damage to any of the parts that matter, but the tyre might be the area where he's flat spotted, or maybe taken a little bit of the edge of the tyre away as he was spinning all his way up to the left turn.
And tyre management is a part of the weekend. 2 free practice sessions, a qualifying 2 races. You get 7 front tyres, 7 rears, not sets, but individual tyres. So doing things like that and damaging a set, not good news.
No, that's the concern that I would have had, was not the car particularly. These things are pretty strong in terms of they're going to be driven by youngsters, so they have to be built in a manner. I mean, they weigh 635 kilograms. My Formula One car in period weighed 575. So it gives you an idea. And that's all down to the construction and the design of the chassis, because it's carbon fiber, and these things are built to last, but principally to protect.
So there, ready to rejoin the session, is Sandro Tabakaladze for Georgia. Gets the indication that he can go now once the pit lane is cleared. And the KCMG squad looking after all the cars. Driving standards flag there. Look for India's Rohan Alva, who's up to 15th in the times. You can see the light, and you can see the white triangle flashing, which is the track limit warning.
So here is the Australia entry, again pushing as he now comes into the 3rd sector to complete another lap. Personal best by 0.4 of a second, but loses most of it in the middle sector. So I don't know what he did. We didn't quite see the beginning of the middle sector to see where that time loss took place. So currently in 12th position on a 2:09.4. Don't expect to see an improvement. Well, he does. Up to 2:08.9. So he's made a couple of positions improvement.
Another warning flag for Hong Kong, China this time. Jasper Tong being warned about track limits. This is Dario Cabanela, who is hustling on. Andrea Antonelli, I get it right eventually, has pitted from pole position, and Cabanela is still hustling on. He's up to 7th in the times, as you can see, for Switzerland.
Well, I think Antonelli has done all he needs to do, and he's going to save the tyres he has, rather than just running around and running around. He's still got a 6, almost 7/10 of a second advantage over Charlie Wirtz, who we saw just a moment ago spin his car coming out of Le Beausoleil So suspect that he'll not be able to try and go out and to challenge Antonelli, who's sitting in the pits. And we've got just under 4.5 minutes of the session to complete. So roughly another 2 laps or so for those that are on track coming across start-finish line now.
So what else can we have out of this qualifying session, where Italy, Austria, Brazil, Germany, Portugal, Serbia is the top 6. No UK representation in this, which is a shame, given that there is a good F4 championship in Britain.
I was going to say, I mean, I watched one of the support races to your broadcast the other day, and that was a Brands Hatch, and I thought it was a cracking race. I mean, one thing I love about these FIA World Motorsport Games is particularly the single-seater discipline, because that's where my heart ultimately lies. And to see the future of, oh no, Malaysia, and that's Alistair Young. So whereabouts on the track is he? Can't quite the wide open. The camera lens up. Let's have a look and see where it is.
It's coming towards the Virage Dupont, isn't it? It's just before the last corner.
Yeah, it's the left-hander before Virage Dupont.
Well, he's got going, gets out of everybody's way. We do have, just to make the point, from the British Championship, Michael Shin, the Korean driver, but he has raced in the UK series this year. He's the nearest who got to an honorary Brit, if you like. There's Charlie Wirtz here pressing on, but recovering after his spin. The times are slower. Is that because he's taken the best out of the tyres now?
I would think that maybe the best of the tyre ultimately has gone, but he's still going out and going to try and push. But on this particular lap, well, you can see the sector times. He's down sector 1 by just under 2/10, but more significantly, just over 3/10 in sector 2. So I don't think he's going to be capable of clawing back any amount of time. So all he will do is now prepare to reset, clean exit out of Virage Dupont, which he gets. A good run down across start-finish line, and he's got traffic ahead of him, 1 car ahead of him, so he doesn't want to get too close to that car. I think he's probably got sufficient distance. He doesn't want to, in the sector that he's coming into now, sector 1, and all the way down to turn 7, which is this corner that leads on to the first part of the Mistral Straight that's now being, of course, split by the chicane midway down it. So Charlie Wirtz has got a lot to do. He's still second quickest overall, provisional front row of the grid starting position, but just 1/10 of a second behind is the Brazil entry. So they are not, well, actually, they're in the pits. So as we look at the Panama, and one of the things, again, is the nations here, you never hear about, of course, if you race in Central America, Panama, of course, but in terms of European racing, we don't often see a Panamanian competitor competing.
Yes, you're right. I mean, Mozambique was one that stood out to me. I can't think of that many Mozambique racing drivers.
Well, you used to race in Mozambique in the 70s in a thing called the Springbok Series, which was a series for 2-litre sports racing cars. And unfortunately, in the 1973 fuel crisis, that Springbok Championship was cancelled, and I was a part of it, and I was very disappointed not to go to Lorenzo Marques, which was the capital, or is the capital of Mozambique, I believe.
Now, stepping over the curb there is Ukrainian, sideways Ukrainian, Alexander Patryshev, the 16-year-old who's been busy this year, racing in the Italian and the German championships. He's also raced in the UAE and the Spanish series, was a karter in 2021, but then stepped into car racing that season and has done a lot of miles since. But Patryshev here comes towards the Virage Dupont. He will squeeze one more lap out of the session. Ukraine 14th at the moment. He improved last time.
Well, he's certainly illustrated to me he's got a lot of car control, because he got out of shape coming out of Le Bousset, and then he got out of shape going into the following turn left, and he managed to keep the car pointing in the right direction. So if he's got the speed and he can smooth out that little, a side of his character where he's overdriving, then we could maybe see something very impressive.
Well, right now, Antonelli is back out again. So Andrea Kimi Antonelli locks up, and there's contact, and that will have done him no good at all. Collides with Chile.
Totally unnecessary.
Yeah. He was on a push lap, I'll grant you, but he was down anyway in the middle sector, and that has done potential damage to his car, potential damage to Maria Jose Perez de Arce Rodriguez for Chile, and it's also now, with the flag out, scuppered anybody else's chances of improving, because there's a yellow at the last corner, there's a checkered flag coming out of it. Valentin Klus for Germany had just gone third, but Andrea Kimi Antonelli there rather blocked his copybook.
I mean, totally unnecessary. So, I mean, he was never in a position to take the corner away. he certainly was quicker in the first sector. He wasn't any quick, but it goes down the inside, and there's a closing gap. And I mean, he's been outstanding all the way through the running, and that's just one little mistake. And maybe it just shows you where the maturity and the experience of these competitors is.
Yeah.
They've got the skills and the abilities, but maybe the experience and the knowledge when and when not to exercise and overtake, and that was a case in point where bad judgment in my view.
I mean, even in a race, that would have been a risky move.
Oh.
But in a qualifying session, when you're on pole anyway, what was the point?
No point, in my opinion. But listen, I'm not a schoolmaster, and some might say I'm lecturing these young competitors.
Listen to Uncle John, all you drivers. So it is at the end of the session, despite that incident, Andrea Kimi Antonelli that is the fastest. Italy, Austria, Germany, Brazil, Portugal, Serbia, Denmark, Belgium, Georgia, Australia is your top 10. How's that for an international lineup for the grid?
I think it's pretty good, and the top 6 are covered by 1.1 seconds. But the reason is that there's such a big gap between first and second. There's still almost 7/10 of a second, but from second all the way down to sixth, it's just, what, 3/10 of a second or so?
So there is the Chilean car, which is 23rd out of the 24. So penultimate in the times. Big disappointment for Perez de Arce Rodriguez, as that car is now going to be retrieved. Let's have a look at the order at the end of qualifying for the KCMG F4 Cup. It is Italy topping the times by 0.6 of a second and a bit more from Austria, with Germany third, Brazil fourth, Portugal fifth, Serbia sixth, seventh Switzerland ahead of Belgium, Georgia and Australia. In other words, it is Andrea Kimi Antonelli that is the fastest, Austria's Charlie Wurz second, Germany's Valentin Klus third, fourth Pedro Clero for Brazil, fifth for Portugal Manuel Espirito Santo, and the Serbian Filip Jenic sixth at the end of qualifying. And the incident between Antonelli for Italy and Rodriguez for Chile will be investigated at the end of the session. Slowest, Malaysia, Alistair Young having a difficult start to the day. But what that gives us is a really nice, interesting grid ready for the qualifying race that will come up later on in the day here at the FIA Motorsport Games. And provisionally, Andrea Kimi Antonelli is going to be on pole position and very much starts as the favourite when we go racing later on in the day.
So that was the qualifying from the KCMG F4, and I guess they were the names that we expected to see at the top, didn't we? Antonelli, Wurz and the German Klaus driver.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's no real big surprise there in that qualifying session, but Antonelli has a great advantage